This morning, new challenges for two of the 2020 Democratic frontrunners. For Senator Elizabeth Warren, a nosedive in the new Quinnipiac national poll, where her numbers have been cut in half in a month. She was at 28% in October, now 14%. It's Mayor Pete Buttigieg who seems to be the main beneficiary, but today he's facing a backlash over past comments he made about minority students. Joining me now to talk about it, Rick Tyler, Republican strategist and co-founder of Foundry Strategies. Michael Starr Hopkins is founding partner of Northern Star Strategies, and he's worked on the campaigns of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and most recently 2020's John Delaney. He is no longer with that campaign. Good to see you guys. Rick, let me start with this poll. 26% of voters say health care is their number one issue. We know Medicare for All is getting more unpopular poll after poll. 52% now say it's a bad idea. In your mind, how much is that driving Warren's decline?
I think nearly all of it. Medicare for All borrowed on a great name, Medicare. People like Medicare. People who have Medicare like Medicare. It continues to enjoy, the program seems to enjoy very much favorability. Bernie Sanders named his program Medicare for All, borrowing from that name. The problem is Medicare for All isn't Medicare at all. It doesn't work like Medicare. It doesn't allow you to have private insurance. And as people began to find that out, when they first polled it, and you remember all the Democratic candidates during the debate, nearly all of them raised their hands and said, I'm for Medicare for All because Medicare was a great thing and we're going to give it to everybody. Then they found out it wasn't like Medicare, and they were going to, 160 million people were going to lose their insurance, and it was going to cost tens of trillions of dollars, and Bernie at least was honest about how he would pay for it, and Senator Warren didn't have a plan for that, or at least she didn't have a plan that people could believe that she wasn't going to have to tax the middle class to get that plan. And people, it also speaks to the fact that people want to beat Donald Trump, and they don't understand the idea of let's beat Donald Trump. Let's not upend and take away people's health insurance. That doesn't seem to be a winning strategy. Yeah, the concern that it might be too far left to get some of those middle of the road voters that they need. I think the other headline here, Michael, is volatility. 64% of those polled say they still might change their minds. And we've seen similar surges and dips among the frontrunners in recent polls out of Iowa and New Hampshire. But I'm wondering if you think this is still largely a race among four people, Biden, Sanders, Warren, Buttigieg, or is it truly wide open?
You know, I actually think this race is wide open. Rick hit the nail on the head when he said that Democrats just want to win. You know, usually Democrats are a party that vote with their hearts. But I think in this election, because Donald Trump is such an existential threat to our democracy, you're seeing a lot of Democrats really be thoughtful and vote with their head in terms of which policies they like, which candidate they think can actually beat Trump. You know, I look back at my former boss, John Delaney. He got booed on a stage in California for going after Medicare for All because it would take away people's private insurance. Well, now that's become mainstream. And so I think you're starting to see kind of an evening out among the field. And you know, Michael, it's notable, I think, that Mayor Pete is now in a statistical three-way tie with Sanders and Warren for second. But the headlines about him this morning are really more about these comments that he made back in 2011. Let me play them.
Especially because the kids need to see evidence that education is going to work for them, right? So you see a lot of parts of
that's
town
part of the
where,
motivation.
Yeah, because you're motivated because you believe that at the end of your educational process there's a reward, there's a stable life, there's a job, and there are a lot of kids, especially the lower income minority neighborhoods, who literally just haven't seen it work. There isn't somebody they know personally,
and I think that's
who testifies to the value of education.
Michael, as you probably know, the clip resurfaced because of a scathing essay in The Root that called his comments a bald-faced lie and used even more colorful language, as we see in the headline there. What's your thought on what Pete Buttigieg said?
You know, I think that the trope about young African Americans not having role models to look up to is outdated, and I think it's a stereotype that's offensive. But what I will say is I think that the Buttigieg camp needs to find some African Americans to talk to, some advisors. You know, I know Sean Shaw down in Florida is kind of their African American surrogate. Well, they need to start putting him on TV, because right now this narrative is really setting in that Pete Buttigieg doesn't have African American support, and it's really going to hurt him.
Yeah, and you know that last night night, Rick, the author of that op-ed came out with another follow-up to that because Pete Buttigieg actually called him and they spoke on the phone for nearly 20 minutes. And he wrote, Pete Buttigieg didn't want to tell me his side of the story. He didn't excuse himself by explaining that the comments referenced by the article were made years ago. Pete Buttigieg listened, which is all you can ask a white man to do. So he listened, but again, he's polling at basically zero among African-American voters. And I'm hearing some people question this morning, well, could this help him, that he's listening, he's learning, he's showing an openness, or is it essentially that window has closed, or if it hasn't, it's about to?
Oh, I don't think it's closed. If Mayor Bloomberg can take a dozen years to figure out that stop and frisk was a bad thing, I think Mayor Pete can turn it around. Look, speaking as a white person, it's hard for me to sit here and speculate about how black people feel, and that's what happened to Pete Buttigieg. You saw there's 4 or 5 white guys talking about black people, and that doesn't tend to go over very well. But I think it provides an opportunity because Pete Buttigieg does not have African American support. This is a window, and it's the way you handle the problem. Yeah. A problem is always an opportunity, and Pete took this opportunity to call the author, and that's opened a door, and he may use this to turn it around. We'll see.
Yeah, it might be an interesting conversation. Who among the candidates would have done the same thing, actually picked up the phone and called and had that conversation?
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.